Welcome to the Bigger, Braver Life show, where leaders and high performers learn to rewire their minds, regulate their nervous systems, and rise into their next evolution. I'm Angela Williams, therapist, leadership coach, and your guide to living, leading, and creating from deep alignment. Because your bigger, braver life isn't about doing more, it's about becoming more of who you really are.
Hey everyone, Angela Williams here. Welcome back to the Bigger Braver Life show. On this episode, we are going to feature an episode that I was a guest on with the lovely Jacqueline Palmiere. She has created a podcast called Default Disrupted, and I'm very excited to host this on our podcast. I hope you enjoy it and go listen to all the rest of her episodes. She's an amazing creator, and I just get so inspired when I speak to her, when I watch her work. So I hope you enjoy and let us know what you think in the comments.
This is Default Disrupted, where we get real with the chain breakers and change makers that are challenging the default setting in their industry. I'm your host, brand whisperer and friendly neighborhood mischief maker, Jacqueline Palmiere. Welcome. Okay. Here we go. So we are getting rolling. I am here with Angela Williams, just an amazing human who I've gotten to know recently and who, with this episode, we're doing things a little bit differently because it's actually a collaborative episode. You're hearing this on Default Disrupted, but this will also be airing on her podcast, The Bigger, Braver Life Show. So welcome, Angela.
Thank you. So glad to be here.
Thank you. So we do things a little differently on Default Disrupted. I can go ahead and introduce you the way I see you, but I'd love to hear kind of the contrast between if you followed the status quo, the default, how do you think you would be introducing yourself right now versus how does Angela Williams, the disruptor, get to introduce herself right now?
I love that. This is a fun mental exercise as well. So I think the default would just be, hi, I'm Angela Williams. I'm a therapist and a coach, and I help you tap into your potential, right? Very jargony, right? But my name is Angela Williams. I am a licensed clinical social worker. I am a coach, but my true passion is to guide high achieving, high ambitious, really individuals who have a passion for making an impact to help them really disrupt the things that are holding them back so that they can live the biggest, fullest expression of themselves as a leader and as someone who wants to leave a legacy and enjoy their life while doing it.
I love that. I mean, all the things, right? There's such a loaded, I know a lot of people that I've worked with that consider themselves impact makers, or other people consider themselves impact makers. I don't know if they necessarily consider themselves impact makers. There's a whole identity in itself with that. And then legacy, right? That's such a loaded word for us right now. Everything that comes with it, and then just being high achieving, there's usually a lot to impact, but instead of kind of falling down that wormhole, which I could go into all day,
Right.
The reason why Angela and I decided to collab on this is because we actually collab in work as well with our services. And that's its own disruption of the default. I came to Angela because I said, hey, I think we're doing things wrong here in the marketing and branding world. And I think what you do could be a huge help. Let's talk a little bit about that first, because just starting there, right? Because you were like, hey, I didn't realize you had been trying to do this with other people and other brands, because you had also seen this whole, can you share with us a little bit about what you were seeing and why you thought this would help? And then I can give my side of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I love this. Yeah. So I love collaboration. I think it's, that's the way for us to go farther together, right? And so for me, there's a lot of focus and my passion, right, is on really getting into the nitty gritty on the behind the scenes of what goes on in a leader's mind. So, again, whether you're a CEO, whether you own a business, a public figure, whatever that looks like, an athlete, right? We've got thousands and thousands of thoughts that we think per day. And we have to filter those. We have to focus those. We choose how to respond. And a lot of times we do this on autopilot. I don't know if you've ever caught yourself doing this, as a business owner, but right, like we can get caught in the day to day of like just checking the boxes or doing things, but not setting up for success in a way that impacts our mind, our body, and our spirit. And so that's like the focus of the work. So when we look at areas where we may falter or have a difficult time, a lot of that comes in transitions, navigating change. So when we are faced with change, whether it's something we want or don't want, our brains kind of have this automatic hit the brakes reaction, whether it's big or little, right? Because our brain is wired for familiarity, for safety, like that's what we crave. And so when we detect a little disruption to that, it can make us freak out just a little bit or a lot of it. And when I've seen people, including myself, have this ideal version of themselves, this next level of leadership that they want to step into, being a personal brand or not, right? There can be that vision and that desire. And so that's so great, right? That pulls us there. But what I see is that when we kind of try to make that transition, our brain is not fully on board. And so what can happen is that can kind of perk up our subconscious for all of those, and for lack of a better term, limiting beliefs. I mean, that's kind of the popular jargon, but it's true, right? So the beliefs that we have taken on when we were young, I mean, I work with people who can remember, memories that impacted them, when they were 2, when they were 3. So when we were very young, we have looked at the world through the lens that we have. We've interpreted things. We sometimes will put a meaning about ourselves on that, whether it's true or not, but we carry that until we process it. So when we come to changes, whether that's in the way that we show up in our business, our life, our relationships, whatever that is, some of those things might be popping up to say, hey, what about me? Remember this. I'm not good enough. I don't matter. I'm unlovable. I'm undesirable. I'm a failure, right? Those are the common kind of human woundings, if you will, that we unfortunately put the label on ourselves when this happens. So I saw it in myself, like a hesitancy, a fear almost in showing up as this different version of me, because I'm like, that imposter syndrome can kick in, right? Or I'm kind of like, wait a second, who am I to say I can do this, right? But the answer is yes, I am. I'm the person who says I get to do this. But those little things can kind of pop up. And so I've seen that, especially with business leaders who maybe have an unprecedented growth. So maybe they've hit their first, $500,000 week, and that's all they've made in their whole past 2 years of business, right? So that can also kind of send our nervous system into a little bit of a haywire, like, hey, again, this is unfamiliar, some beliefs and thoughts, money stuff can come up, right? All sorts of fun things. And so again, I think it's so important as a leader to be aware of that, understand, the whole background process of your beliefs, your thoughts, your emotions, your body sensations, your behavior, how all of this works together, and how we can optimize that for self-mastery, honestly.
You actually, I caught it and I was like, exact. The part where you said, whether it's a change that we want or a change that we don't want. And I think that's so huge because especially in entrepreneurial circles, right? We have that do it messy, do it before you're ready, do it scared. And like, yeah, action's absolutely important. We should take that next step. Like, don't wait for everything to be perfect. But at the same time, doing it messy, doing it scared, sometimes meaning do it before your nervous system has been trained to know that this is coming, right? I've been in this situation before, and I think there's, remember like front facing Jack, brand Jack, she's ready, she's gonna kill it. Nervous system survival, inner child Jack was like, oh, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Right. Yeah.
I think especially, I'll also throw in there, you're right, with all those kind of changes. I think if it requires a different way of you showing up. I had been doing copy for so long and being behind the scenes. And for me, my sign of doing a great job as a copywriter was if you didn't know I was there, then I did a great job because I sound so much like you. It doesn't sound like anybody else is there. So being behind the scenes, not being present at all, not, doing the project and then rolling out, that is super important. And then suddenly having to switch into something that requires me to be more out there, more seen, right? Like I have a lot of clients who they will be cool through the entire process of the rebrand, a project, like they're in it. But when that side of them has to be seen, and I'll go a little bit onto why I said specifically that side, right? It can full stop, right? Like that project can literally go in like the project graveyard to die and never come out. And I kind of want to elaborate with you a little bit on this because I think a lot of the women that I know are very fiery, very passionate. Sometimes they've been very front facing and they've been leading. But because I'm a little bit of a pit bull when it comes to like, nah, I'm not, I won't even take 80 to 90% of you showing up in your brand. I want 100% of who you are front facing. I, there's always that little bit of us, right? So even if we're showing up bold and fiery and people are like, wow, she's so confident, she's killing it. There's that little part of us, like you said, that little inner child, that little comment that someone said, yeah, but that, hide that, right? Like that has no space in your industry. That has no space in what you're talking about or who you're supposed to be. And it's that part that even if we're strong, confident women, I think it almost becomes easy, right? Because on the outside, everybody sees us as strong and confident. Everyone sees us as killing and doing the thing. No one knows there's that extra added layer that we've been keeping in the closet. And when it's time for that thing to come out, it can be pretty scary. But I'll also add that I found that when people are willing to do it, usually if they've hit like some kind of ceiling, I'm interested to see if like you've seen this with your clients, they will be growing, they'll be expanding, but they'll hit some kind of ceiling. And usually it's because their brand or their voice is missing that one thing that was hiding in the closet in the background.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So I recently too, I've talked to some folks who have hit an income ceiling, who have hit more of a personal leadership ceiling. So they feel like now, they've taken on more roles in their company. And so they need to have more of the emotional intelligence element, right? And so they feel like they've hit these ceilings. And I just want to first say, like, it is okay when if that happens to you, right? Because it's totally figure outable, right? We can work through that. It's understanding, you know, where it is, why it's there, and then doing that deeper work to smash it, right? Smash that. I call it the success ceiling, right? So we've hit our success ceiling, we're smashing it, we're moving forward in a way that feels balanced and aligned with our nervous system. And so, yeah, I have seen that. I think for me in my approach, right, for you, it's there's a message, there is an element that's been hiding, there's words, there's a thing, right, that's holding them back from saying the thing. And that piece is so important. And in the work that I do with people, typically if there's something mentally or emotionally holding them back that is blocking, they'll actually feel it in their throat. So fascinating things. Yeah. So for y'all who are listening or watching, if you feel like there's something, yeah, like that's right now, I'm centered, where it's showing up in your body, right? So a lot of time it's the throat is where a blocked communication, we didn't get to say the thing or right, whatever. That will come up. Anyway, I think that answered your question, but yeah, that's kind of what I'm seeing.
It definitely did. And I think also it from what I've seen and from my personal experience, I think it's kind of another clue is that I love these clues now that really like, there we go. I think another clue is it sneaks out in little things, right? So for me, like I said, going back to with copywriting, I kind of should have known because, I'd go in, make this copy and send it, clients like, cool, let's go. And then I'd continue kind of following them and be like, okay, but what's happening next, right? Like, well, what does it look like on the website? What's happening with how they're showing up? How is there? So, for those of you who don't know, I transitioned into branding and creative direction, and that was my clue, right? Like, any other copywriter would be like, cool, job done, you were happy, goodbye.
Right.
Like, so who's doing your photos and what are you planning for that? And what's happening? So it was sneaking out. I have another client, her work is in a subject that's a little bit heavier and doesn't have a lot of room for play, right? The subject matter can feel serious,
Yeah.
but she's a very creative human. She loves to design, she loves to create things. And so anytime she'd have the opportunity to like create a little something for her business, she was like, that's one of my favorite parts of my day. So if you're finding like little vacation spots where your passion is like seeping out into little places, that's something that should be a part of your brand and showing up every day. That's something that your audience should be seeing. I'm going to switch over for a second a little bit too. So outside of being aware and obviously like doing the work, something else that Angela and I kind of discovered was there was a disconnect. So the reason why it's not just, hey, let me send you to Angela and then the work is done and come and talk with me. I have my clients working with Angela and I in unison at the same time. And sometimes, here and there as needed as we go through the process, because I think so many times we have these big, aha, amazing moments. And then we go to the people that's working with us and we're like, it's gone. I can't remember what it was or can't express it the way that it showed up in that call. The example that I try to use is like if you have this amazing retreat. I just got back from Costa Rica. You
That looks so beautiful, by the way. I was like, oh,
know,
picture.
thank you. But you're like, pura vida, you're in the vibes, you're having all these downloads. You come home and you step on a goddamn Lego and it's gone, right? Like you're like, what was it again? Where is my peace? Where's my vibe? And
That's so true. So true.
right. Or even time. And so I think there's a beauty to having an ecosystem where the people that are working with you on the internal work are also in communication with the people that are working with you on the external work. So you don't have to try to communicate, hey, this is what happened, or this is, what the breakthrough was. There's that direct communication. Or on the other side, right? So not just if it's a good thing, but if it's a bad thing, right? So sometimes if there's a launch or something that's coming up and you're just like, oh, we have to do it by this day. And, it might not be the way that it's working out timeline wise for execution. There might be something else going on in the back, right? Or you're stalling, you're procrastinating on turning things in. Your service providers, the people that you're working with, they have no idea what the hell is going on. But, someone like Angela can look at it and be, oh, yeah, obviously we need to move these deadlines around. These dates are not going to work because we need to clear this first before we go on to the next thing.
Mm-hmm. And what I love about the work that we do and the collaboration we have decided on is that it is a holistic approach. So that's one of my values, just personally and for the business, is how do we look at holistic success? And this gives a perfect opportunity because we have people that are coming to you specifically for a time in their life where they want to make this big transition, or they are, or they have already. But the change process, right? Like the change process, the enacting it, the being it, the showing up every day, right? That's what can bring up some of those limiting beliefs, if you will. And it's all good. It's going to happen as part of the process. So, but let's work through it so you don't have to, self-sabotage in the process. And that's really what it was. And for me, I've seen, looking back at my patterns of self-sabotage, it was avoidance. So it was not doing the thing that I needed to do. And so what that did was tanked my revenue. That tanked my consistency, tanked my, credibility or authority or whatever, because I wasn't doing the thing I said I was going to do or the thing I needed to do. So I think it's important to note how that shows up for all of us individually, and then being able to be aware of that and shift. And the ultimate goal, I talk to my clients and, we talk about this and, a lot of people are like, yeah, I want to be joyful. I want to feel free. I want to, feel all these great things. And yes, we want that 100%. But I think at the end of the day, what we really want is that neutrality, that detachment from the self-sabotage urges or the avoidance or however that shows up. And so, it's not sexy sounding, but the neutral response, that's a true self-mastery, because that means you've done the work to detach all of the stuff it says about you if you don't have a launch that brings in your target number.
Yeah, I love that you said however it shows up. I remember mine being when I was making the transition into creative direction. I remember mine being like, I don't have enough to show for it. I haven't studied enough yet, right? Like I need to do more. I need to learn more of the things. I need to get more in my portfolio. I need to. There was like an imaginary quota that I had in my head. And the irony of like, well, when I have this many clients, that I'm doing this kind of work for, I'll come out and say, this is the kind of work that I'm doing. But you also have to say, this is the kind of work that I'm doing. Right. Those clients in the first place. So that was my own little narrative. I'm kind of curious now with you, like, now you can look back in hindsight and be like, oh, that was procrastination. But what were you telling yourself in that moment that the reason why you couldn't get the thing done? Like, what was the...
And I love this because it can be so subtle because it can show up differently in different ways, right? So sometimes, for me, because, as entrepreneurs, guess what? We make the rules. We work for ourselves. We have to be disciplined or not, but that's what's going to help us get to our goals is focus, really. And so for me, sometimes what I would just find myself on the couch. I've binged already, 3 episodes of the latest thing on Netflix, and I go, oh shit, I was supposed to do this, this, and this, and I didn't do it. And then, oh, I'll do it tomorrow.
It's too late now. Time to go pick up.
Too late. I'm tired. Tomorrow. So that's so subtle, right? Because I didn't tell myself, oh, I'm not going to do this today because da 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 da. Like in the forefront.
Yeah.
That happened after I already realized, oh, I've been sitting here for a solid 3 hours not doing the thing that I needed to do.
And you're like, I deserve the rest. Like, and that's the thing, right? I think also we have so much messaging that we can kind of twist and use in our favor, right? Like, on the one hand, I love the messaging of rest. I love, especially for highly ambitious women, like, chill out. It's okay. You don't have to be on all the time. But we can very easily, when we're procrastinating, flip that bad boy and be like, I deserve okay, yes, you deserve the rest, like, for the last 2 weeks. Now it's probably time to get back into it. I think one more thing that I'm really hoping that this helps is, especially like you said, for impact makers, right? People that are like, my work is going out into the world, helping people, making things better for the world. For that particular group, the idea of marketing and selling can feel icky. It could feel gross, right? Like, okay, like something I have to do because I have to market my business and I have to sell. I have to, okay, yeah, I guess I'll do brand. I guess I'll do all that. But it usually then, because of that, creates this kind of compartmentalization. Oh my God. I'm going to have to like cut that part. Because that's how they feel about selling, they tend to compartmentalize the different ways that they show up, right? When they're showing up with their clients, they're their full natural selves. When they show up to the marketing selling side, it feels like this filtered, sterile thing because we've really been taught, I'm going to take responsibility as, as the face of the entire marketing industry, obviously not, but where marketing has taken it so far, we kind of have made it this sterile thing. It's about audio trends. It's about funnels. It's about, and all of those things are really good. But where's the meeting point between the two, right? Like, where can we make it so that you get to show up and be you in the way you are in your work when you're completely lit up in this area that maybe hasn't been as fun to do the work and show up. So that's another thing that I'm kind of hoping for. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, but I think, if we can feel better about doing all the things that we should be doing in our business, and it's all, great. I can't promise all of it, but right, like, tax season might not be, I haven't found a way around that one yet, but, I can definitely say, I think, and you and I had the discussion, I said, one of the goals that I really had when we started talking about working together was I want the people that are coming through to feel more like themselves after the process of it than they did before. And I think that was a place we both agreed was important.
Yes, absolutely. So I actually had a funny thought this morning. I was like, I remember when I was first looking for jobs, like before I went to grad school, I was like, I hate sales. I'm never doing sales. And then, fast forward, I'm a solopreneur. So guess what? You're doing all the things. I thought that was hilarious to myself. But anyway, the thing about it is that, but why? Why did I hate sales? And it was because I've had crappy experiences being sold to. And I was actually taught some yucky stuff early, from previous people about how to sell and not having that full understanding. So all of that was confusing. It didn't feel good or aligned with me until I found a coach who did bring in a more aligned system and taught that, but also doing the mindset work of being able to feel worthy to share my stuff and know fully that people need this and want this solution, right? And again, really think of it less as sales, but, reframing that approach on, literally solving problems. We're literally out here solving problems. If they need it, cool. If not, cool. And make it simple. So for those parts of it where it feels yucky or not aligned, I think I would encourage whoever is listening and kind of, feeling that is ask why. What are those things that have contributed? What are the thoughts? What are the beliefs? And then, because sometimes it's just a new approach that we need, or sometimes we do just need to kind of go back to a few memories and rewire those so that your belief takeaway is, it's all good. I am worthy, whatever, right? And then we move on from there. So, I've personally done a lot of work to support my mindset around abundance and worthiness and wealth creation. And so I think like that has been pivotal for me to make it all feel like it's just part of the system that helps connect me and helps me make that ripple impact by helping others make their ripple impact, if that makes sense.
No, I love that reframe on like, what is this action actually doing, right? To make it feel, it is more ethical, right? It is more, if you came to me and you were sick and I had the medicine in my pocket, I'm not being like, ooh, it would be really weird for me to tell you I have the medicine right now, right? Like, no, I'd be like, oh my, I have that. But when we're like, hey, I can help you with that, feels a little bit bragger, ego, whatever, shouldn't. I think another thing to kind of look at here is the amount of energy that goes into filtering ourselves, right? If when we're showing up on social media or in our emails or photos, whatever, and once again, we've been taught in childhood or anything, as we said, that there are parts of us that aren't acceptable. There's a lot of energy that comes into making sure those parts aren't seen, right? And from my experience, from my clients' experience, I've heard everything from, I'm a first generation immigrant and I have this story and I'm passionate about it, but it has nothing to do with what I'm selling. That's completely irrelevant, right? Or when I show up in the world, I show up in a way that outsiders might view as being, the loud Black woman stereotype. And that's not something that I can bring into my selling. So I need to tone it down. I need to code switch, right? Or if it's like, I need to, whatever it is, right? Whatever the narrative or the story in your head that if you're not being that person, it's funny, I've sat down and met with people that have only known me online and they meet me offline and they're like, oh shit, this is it. This is you. This is really you. And I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, that's the point, right?
Right.
But I think we don't realize how exhausting and tiring it is to censor ourselves or not show that things are showing up for us or feel like, even if it's not who we are, and maybe it's a time in our life that's really difficult where we're just not feeling like showing up as that character that we've always shown up in, right? And so we don't want to show up at all. We feel like we have to continue being that mascot or don't bother. And I think if we can, remove that and feel fully liberated in putting all of us out there, woof, that's half the job taken off of our plate.
100%. And, the examples you shared, it's like, this story isn't relevant to what I'm selling. Where did you get that idea? People want to know. People love stories. People want to know. People, I don't know if you notice, people are obsessed with people's lives. Hello, reality TV, right? Like people want to know that stuff about you. And also, I think salad dressing. One time I had this salad dressing bottle and it was a new brand or whatever, and I was going to try it. And I sat there at the table and I read that they literally put their story on the label. And I was like, this is really cool. And it made me feel good, right? Because I was like, oh, I can connect. There's a real person behind this. It's not just, big box name or big manufacturer name that God knows what's in here. But like, you know what I mean? Like, so if you're hearing this, you're taking the lesson, like people want that and need that. This is what it's connection. Like we are wired for connection and that's what that is. But again, going back to why do we have these stories? It's who said that? Who was the first person who made you think differently, or what situation or what experience? Whose voice is that? Like where did we origin story this that you think this doesn't work out or works only one way or whatever, right? So is there an example that you can think of for you when you've had to rework your approach to, the way that you show up?
So it's funny. I accidentally did it. So this is, while I was still doing copywriting, COVID was on the uptick. My mom had gotten very, very sick,
Mm.
and like sick, like it was like I might need to start planning funeral arrangements.
Mm.
And literally my brain, you're doing eldest daughter
Yeah.
shit, going through all the stuff, hoping for the best, preparing for the worst, right?
Mm.
Realize that my mom has zero pictures, like none. We don't have, she's just one of those women that never really took pictures.
Mm.
And so thank God she got better. She's great. She's with us now. But afterwards, I had that moment of like, well, I know I have like pictures around, but do I have any pictures that I feel really represent me, right? Really represent who I am on the inside? And I had called Damali Shepard, amazing photographer. Shout out to Dia, she's listening. And
Yeah, I mean, her work, y'all need to go look at her stuff ASAP. It's really a work of art.
but like I always tell people go to her because soon she's only going to be working with like A-list celebrities and then you won't be able
I
to
agree. Yeah.
go now. So I contacted her and I said, and actually it's funny, I always say the first shoot I ever creative directed with my own, because I came to her and I said, this is not a brand shoot. All I want to do is go and get photos that one day my kids could show and be like, this was my mom. Like, do you see this? And we came up with all these stories and all these backgrounds. And at the same time, I was kind of like switching websites anyway, but my brain was never like, I'm going to use this here.
Yeah.
So did the whole shoot, felt so fully represented. All the stories, everything that we did was a different character inside of who I am.
Yeah.
And got the photos back. And I remember being like, oh damn, these are almost too good not to, like, how do I not use these now?
Right.
And the voice in my head, the fear, because some of them and I literally remember, so one is like, I have a hair towel in my hair and I'm wearing like a button up shirt and I'm drinking scotch out of a cup. And I remember even I had spoken to someone and they were like, you can't use that. Like you're not wearing pants, woman. Like you got a towel in your hair. You got, do you know the stereotypes about women of color and alcohol and this and that? And so not just that, but there was also this voice in the back of my head that people were going to be like, who the fuck do you think you are? Right? Like showing up.
Yep.
If you are a copywriter, you don't need all this. And so finally I bit the bullet. I put it out there into the world. And I was so scared. I remember like it was one of those things where you post and you throw the phone away because you don't want to
Right.
let me get busy. Let me go do something. And when I had come back, everyone was like, these are so you. These
Mhm.
feel so much like you. And what I thought that I had been successfully hiding in the background, right? The bigger, more glamorous, some of them were more masculine, it was slipping out. It was being seen. And a lot of the people in my orbit were already staying there looking for more, right? So when I was like, what are they gonna think? They already knew. Like, we're the last ones to know, right? And I think, and I'm really glad actually. Thank you for asking me that because I think this story is so relevant because a lot of clients that I do have come through, sometimes they're not doing a rebrand or they want to make the shift or change because they have to, right, for their business.
Mhm.
Sometimes, in the beginning, when you start and you launch and you're doing the thing dirty and you're just kind of looking around at what works for other people and you scrap something together and it starts to work and that's fantastic, right? But then as it continues to roll, you feel like you have to stay attached to what's worked. And as a result, you get really scared because you're like, well, everyone's always known me as this thing. And when I stop being this thing, am I still relatable? Am I still relevant? Or are people going to be like, whoa, she jumped the shark big time, right? Like, what's going to happen when I stop being this thing that got me here, right? And for some people, that's their livelihood, right? That's the only thing. It's a big risk to put yourself out there because if that response doesn't go in your favor, or, if you're, the breadwinner, that's the livelihood of your family, right? Depending
Right.
on how your household's set up, it could be risky as hell. But I also think on the other side of it, when I was looking at that risk, right, as going into being a creative director, I wanted to be able to show my kids what I was doing, right? And for some reason, I mean, it was cool with copy and everything, but there was a completely different approach now to being like, look what mommy made. Look what I did here, right? Like I want to be able to share that with them, to have them on set, which I haven't yet, but that's coming soon. For them to see what's being made in action and leave the things that I made behind, that these are things that live forever. They don't just like die once the offer isn't
Mhm.
sold anymore and that sales page gets deleted, right?
Mhm.
What about you? Have you had any moments where you were like, I think I can do this. I think I can make this jump. I think I can show this thing. But there's that awesome tango dance between, nah, bitch, put that back there.
Yeah. Yeah, actually. So for me, it was at first, it was switching over from being the therapist to the face of my personal brand. So and a coach, right? So there's not so favorable opinions of coaches in the therapy world. There's a lot of emphasis in our training as a therapist to, be more neutral, and the client is the center of everything, and we keep our opinions pretty chill. I think it's getting a little more flexible nowadays, but that was kind of the what I took in, right, from that. And so, going from being behind the scenes in that way to then being front and center, sharing my values, sharing my opinions, like that brought up a lot of stuff for me, like wild stuff, like that I wouldn't have ever thought would have come up. Like, oh my gosh, if I, really do this and I do this like well, like, you know, will my parents feel a certain way about me being successful? Like stuff that like you don't anticipate that's ever going to come up, right? I don't know. It was a lot. And so that really was the moment that I dove really deep, started to dive really, really deep into my, personal development, because if I would have just stayed there, I wouldn't have shown up. And I remember one of my coaches was like, all right, it's time to do Facebook Lives every week. And I said, what? Like, no, I didn't sign up for this. Like, no. But then, of course, with that confidence work, with the repetition, I just get on sometimes. I'm like, okay, here we go. So it's like, and we do shows and all that and the podcast, but yeah, so it's really gotten to an amazing place. And now, as I even am pivoting more into leadership, executive coaching, and more of the corporate side where I'm doing the trainings and consulting on wellness programs and things like that. So really expanding my reach. That at first was kind of like similar thoughts of like, okay, well, who am I? Because I'm sure there's a bunch of other people that are more trained in leadership than I am. Fun fact, I was an adjunct faculty member and taught a leadership course. So it's like, that's silly, right? But those are the things that come up. So doing that work, I mean, I just got off the phone with somebody who we're working on a proposal so that I can pitch my training services to a large organization, right? And again, support their employees. So, it felt just like breathing air. And that's the goal, that I have for my clients. That's the goal that I have for people that want to make an impact, is like, let's just have you breathe in, breathe out, and keep it moving. And we don't have to have a mental breakdown or sabotage our success or impact the thousands of people that we could by just staying quiet or not doing the thing or avoiding the thing, whatever that is.
I think it's so powerful what you were saying, because I really admire what you did there, because for me, right, my transition on my side, I feel like it was just the next level of what I was already doing, right? I'm telling stories as a copywriter, and I'm just adding on more storytelling mediums, right? For you, like you said, you had this idea, this identity as a therapist, which was internally and culturally different than your identity as a coach. Did you have to go through like any kind of grieving process? Like, was there anything that really clicked you over in your brain from like, okay, this is therapist Angela and this is coach Angela?
So when I set up my businesses, I actually set them up separately to help me make that distinction. And so now it doesn't feel that vital to do that. But at the time, that was like the external separation was helpful for my brain. I'm trying to think if there's another example, but it it just feels now, again, it feels like breathing air. So I mean, I'm sure there was more of that, but I think for me, it's the approach too, right? Because our the philosophical approaches are a little bit different. I mean, they're very, very similar, very overlap, but I get to be a little more directive and you know, create the thing, right? Fill in the blanks. Whereas, in therapy, like you as the client are filling in the blanks and we're, again, providing that challenge and support and all the good things, the information. But I get to bring all the beautiful parts of that into the coaching space and create, like, I feel like even more value, if that makes sense.
I mean, and I just kind of want to emphasize for anyone that's listening, because I think this is huge. Obviously, you can have both. You can be both, right?
Yeah.
I think so many times we're in our especially in online culture and talk, it's like burn it all down and go into the next evolution. It's like, well, maybe that's not what's meant for us. Maybe we are meant to do both things, or maybe we are meant to have systems that support, different sides of our personality and not just throw everything into one. So I'm gonna start to wrap us up, but before I do, I wanted to see if you had any clues, crumbs, because I know we were talking about how our nervous system is very sneaky with keeping us safe and surviving. For those that are listening that are in the middle of an identity shift, what would be some clues or symptoms that they could look for to be like, oh, this is not just a thing that I'm doing. This might actually be my nervous system freaking the hell out about this process.
Yes, yes. That's a great question. So when you feel more of the fight or flight, freeze, fawn responses versus the rest and digest, that's what we differentiate the parasympathetic and the sympathetic nervous system as, right? But if you're feeling more of that, fight or flight, or and again, it may be more subtle. You may not go into a full panic attack, but you may feel resistance in your body somewhere. You may get headaches. You may, right? Like your body gives you off so much information. And actually, I heard this very fascinating stat. I think it was yesterday, but it was another famous therapist who was doing a training with doctors in a hospital system, and they estimated about 70% of the people that come in were having physical manifestations of a mental origin issue. So yeah, so I that blew me away because we the more that we know ourselves and the more that we know our bodies and the more that we know our patterns and our thoughts and feelings, like we can sort that out, right? We don't have to go to the ER for that. And so anyway, pay attention to your body, right? Pay attention to, like you said, the desires that you keep coming back to or that they keep coming out in some sort of way, the questions that you have, the things that you gravitate to. Pay attention to those clues. But as far as, if you're struggling with something in this identity shift or, you're being required to kind of move up, right, in capacity or abilities or whatever leadership role, look for what's scary, look for what you're avoiding, look for, yeah, the things that don't put you at ease. And so sometimes it can be an exciting feeling, like a nervous, I call it scare-sighted, right? Where it's scared and excited at the same time. That's that opportunity for you to spring forward into your growth. But, sometimes there are things that we're just straight up not doing, or, some people will discount themselves, even before a certain thing. I used to do that too. So like just saying, oh, I don't meet the qualifications. I'm not going to apply to this grant or, whatever. And some of that stuff you do need to meet the qualifications, but some things are where you don't need to count yourself out first. So just notice the thought patterns, notice where your energy, if it feels like it's leaking, if it feels like it's being drained, or if it feels, real good, take notes on all of that. So knowing yourself first is that first step to that self-mastery, that emotional mastery that we're talking about. That would be my advice right now.
I love that. I love that. I think that's great. And I could add one more. I would add in limbo, right? I think there's the limbo of, and there's, right, we need to know certain things before we move forward, absolutely. But also, if you're stuck in the limbo, I don't know what my offers would look like. I don't know exactly what I'd call myself. I've spoken to people that have everything they need for their launch, but they're like, I don't know my elevator pitch, my 30-second elevator. I need to know my 30-second elevator pitch before I put everything out there. And I'm like, what? Where's this elevator? Like, just get your ass out there. What are you doing? Right?
Right. You don't need the elevator. Yeah.
We'll
Yeah.
deal with that later. That's a nice to have, not a need to have. So if
Right.
you're leaning on all the nice to haves,
Or caught in the details when you really just need to, focus on the big picture. Agreed.
yeah, absolutely. Perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much, Angela. Can you tell our listeners the best place to find you and your work if they are relating to everything they're hearing here and they're like, yes, that's me. I need.
Yes. And my website is angelamarie.co. So you'll find free resources. You can jump on the newsletter. I do lots of free trainings and you can get the free resources. There's also master classes, all good things that will come to you there. And then you can find me on social media at the Angela Marie Williams.
Perfect. Perfect. And of course, if you are needing Angela's work and my work with branding and direction, and you want to experience both at the same time, you can find the offers around that at emboldenproductions.com, MBLDN productions.com. Thank you again so much for joining me. This has been awesome. And I have a feeling we'll have to do a follow-up on this pretty soon because there's still so much more that we could get into
Right.
3-hour episode. So thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. This has been perfect.
You're not here for surface level success. You're here to expand. Visit angelamarie.co, where you'll find retreats, private coaching, and resources to expand your capacity and lead with calm, clarity, and authority. If this conversation moved you, make sure to share it with a leader who's ready for more.